Hello again, fight fans. I am Jason Burgos, and I am joined by one of the forces behind the MMA brand known as XFC. After running events for nearly 10 years, the promotion had to stop operations in 2016 and began a long road to rise up like a caged phoenix to return to the sport with a successful November event which was XFC 43, which also aired on NBC Sports. Now, on March 27th, the promotion brings its 2021 slate, preceded by a whole week of activity. Got a UFC, the XFC Fight Experience, you got Tryouts, then you have the event Young Guns 1. Here, with me to talk all of that and more is the organization's longtime president, Myron Molotky. Myron, thank you so much for the time to talk the latest with XFC.
Hey, it's great to be here, Jason. Thanks for having me on.
So first, let's talk XFC 43 in November. First event under the XFC banner in 4 years. You had some UFC vets on the card under this format where you had like the young gun fights, focused on the prospects, tournament bouts to start developing new champions for the promotion, super fights, which were kind of the main event, Conan main event with the more well-known talent. After one event, were there things you loved about how you went? Were there things you go, okay, I got to tweak a little bit here going forward? And is promoting MMA events after a little bit of a break truly like riding a bike?
Wow. I love the enthusiasm. Thank you for that. Yeah, I'll tell you what, I thought for all the challenges we went into the first event, like you mentioned, in 4 years, that the team performed flawlessly. We did everything that we set out to do plus more. I thought the production team did a great job. The staff was spot on. When I take a look at it, the fights, I thought the fights were great. You're always going to have, and we talked to the fighters at the fighter meeting, and we really try to ramp them up. We have a fighter meeting unlike anyone else, and we talk about what it really takes to compete in the hexagon, the history of the hexagon, former fighters, and just really try to build that up to make sure they know what we expect, what the fans expect when they get inside the hexagon. And you know what? Most of them rose to the occasion. A few didn't, but you're going to have that on the card. So you mentioned our main event, Andre Sukumtha and Guilherme Faria. That was outstanding. That's what we're looking for with XFC, just fireworks from the time they get started until the fight's over. And that was just a great example of what we had.
Talk to me about this tryouts that are going to go on in Oklahoma. Why go the direction of tryouts instead of just, say, letting your talent evaluators, your bookers seek out the talent, like kind of most promotions often do? From your experiences in this sport, do you feel there is something unique, beneficial in the open tryout format? Does it offer the opportunity to discover talent that might have been overlooked otherwise?
Yeah. We believe in the tryouts, and the proof's right there in what you saw in the hexagon. I would never have known who Austin Bashi was. Great young gun prospect that we have if we didn't have him at the tryout, right?
Okay.
So, Austin's just a great example. But if you look at the history of XFC, our grassroots movement, it's really, we have the tryouts, we have young guns, we have the XFC tournament, which is the most vicious tournament in combat sports, and then we have our super fights. But to talk about the tryouts, we take it serious, Jason. When we show up, we are looking for talent, and what we have to see is that world-class athlete. And especially in the young guns realm, they may still be a little raw in certain areas. We get that, we understand that, which is why we have that development league called the Young Guns. But these tryouts, whether we find one fighter or we find 6 or 7 fighters, we are truly looking to find talent to put inside the XFC hexagon. And if you go through the history, some of the fighters that have been through the tryouts, Chris Barnett, Huggy Bear was our first tryout winner before my time with XFC. But then you take a look at Nick Newell. Everyone knows who Nick Newell is.
Yep.
Nick never would have got a chance if he didn't show up to the XFC tryouts and get put on a platform that he could raise his personal brand and, of course, raise the XFC brand as he did. So many female fighters that have gone through the XFC tryouts that are now fighting in the biggest promotions in the world right now. So, our tryouts are for real. Our development of fighters is our focus, because at the end of the day, when we start talking about what our super fights look like you mentioned when we first started,
Yeah.
we're looking at free agents, and there's a lot of great fighters out there. And, some fit the XFC, what we're looking for, and some just don't. That's okay. But when we take a look at what we're trying to do with this brand, tryouts, and then young guns, developing these kids, take a look at what the XFC roster is going to be like in 2-3 years as we develop these kids, as we get through these tournaments. Our roster is going to be vicious.
And I'm glad you brought up kind of what the direction the brand and the promotion is going, stuff like that, because it's hard to compete against the UFC. It's such a massive Goliath with such a huge market share. But we've seen in the last decade or so, a lot of promotions kind of pivot to offer a unique format, or maybe to offer something to a specific audience. Like PFL does the season and the playoffs. Combate America is catering to a Spanish-speaking audience. One wants to cater to Asian MMA, build Asian MMA. LFA has really embraced this role as, we're going to be the hub for future stars on the UFC and the feeder league to the Bellator and those kinds of things like that. What would you say, if you had to sum it up, is what makes XFC what it is, what it makes it a unique thing compared to what is a much more filled market than it was years ago? Is it about finding the next stars that'll be in the UFC? Is it about slowly building to eventually be competition to the UFC? What makes this brand, and what's like the long-term goal and overall look of how you feel you want people to think of XFC?
Well, if you mention the UFC, first of all, our goal is not to be the UFC or be like the UFC. Okay, we're going to be the best version of the XFC. And you mentioned some great promotions there, but when you really take a look at our business model, we're the only ones that are doing it this way. And I'll tell you what, when you talk about Bellator, you talk about UFC, the others, whatever they're doing, they do what they want to do, right? But when you take a look at that, I guarantee you, Scott Coker would love to have a rewind and really develop the sport of MMA with what we're doing with XFC. I had a conversation with Lorenzo Fertitta not that long ago, and the conversation came around back to me that Lorenzo had mentioned if he had a do-over, really engulfing from the youth all the way through the superstars, that would be a great do-over to go with. They rely on feeder systems, as you mentioned with the LFA. Ed Soares is doing a great job finding good prospects to get into the UFC. We're not a feeder league. We're looking to have an XFC roster to give the most exciting, violent fights inside the cage, period. Okay? And, you take a look, you see so many fights, they're so hyped, everyone's getting excited, and then the fights they suck, okay? Because someone's playing it safe or someone's trying not to lose. That's not what we expect of our athletes in the XFC. It's letting it loose, win or lose, okay? I love a kid as much. If there's a tight loss, they go 3 rounds and it's a freaking war. Hey, that kid's going to get back inside the hexagon. So, if the fans are loving what we're doing, the fans are loving what our fighters are, how they're performing inside the cage, we're successful. So.
I'm glad you brought up kind of pushing the idea of violence in a fun, fan-friendly stuff, and also circling back to the idea of free agents, because the UFC is sort of going through a purge of some of its talent now, and yeah, there's some bigger names, but there's some names, for example, like Andre, you mentioned, a guy who was on the UFC, maybe didn't have a great run in the UFC. Now, when you see these fighters coming from the UFC, is there a desire? Yeah, let's bring them in. They're UFC names. They can help showcase and bring attention to other fighters. These fighters you want to build to be XFC homers and stay for years. Or, like you said, is there a specific kind of strategy to it? Yeah, okay, Andre went 2-5 in the UFC, but he was known as an exciting action fighter. We want a specific type of fighter. So is that the thing? You know what? We're not looking for wrestlers, not to say against wrestlers, but we want action first. That's how we're going to build a brand. We want exciting fighter first.
Hey, I'll start out by saying wrestlers are badass. Okay? I have no problem with the wrestlers. But when you talk about Andre was signed not because he was a UFC vet. Okay, Andre was signed for his style, the excitement that he brings.
Right.
And we really believe, Andre is one of these kids that's both inside the hexagon and outside the hexagon. That's the type kid, okay, that comes into the XFC. The way he holds himself, his fan base is absolutely incredible, and he is one outstanding human being. So I love Andre Supentop.
Do you, and go into the idea also of like you want to build these stars and you kind of want to keep them too, because it's you're not going to be a feeder league and stuff like that. Is there kind of, you see in sports, like maybe baseball or something like that, you have a prospect, they came from the minors, they're a really good player, or even other sport, and you these teams try to sign them, give them some big money, maybe a little bit in advance than they would have maybe gotten in terms of they tested free agency. Is there a theory, because we want to have these people stay with us for a long time, we don't want them to leave to certain brands they're established? Is there an idea of when someone is, we know this is the one, is there an idea that maybe we got to pay a little bit more in advance just to make sure they stay here longer than they might have in years past?
Hey, I appreciate you bringing that up, because the one thing that part of the culture that we're really building within our staff, everyone involved with XFC, I look at it, it's on me. If someone wants to leave,
Yeah.
okay, there's a couple points to it. First of all, every kid that grows up in MMA dreams of being a UFC champion, okay? Not a Bellator, not an XFC, not a one champion. They dream to be UFC because basically, hey, they kicked this whole thing off, right? And we get that. But what we found, especially in our run in Brazil, we treat our fighters so well. We pay them well. And we treat them with the respect that they typically don't see in the sport. And for us, we look at it, I want a kid to come up to the end of his contract, and if he's getting offered more money, give us the opportunity to match, okay? And then I want him to say, why would I want to leave? I have it great here, because you don't have to be in a specific organization to define a successful career. And we believe with the XFC, we've got some advantages. First of all, our culture, the way that we treat these fighters, we treat them great, okay? And rightfully so, they deserve it. It's not because we're just, we have to treat people great. They deserve it. I mean, they're putting a lot into this too, their heart and soul. So we believe in the fighters that we sign. We don't sign them on an if, okay? We do our research, and it means a lot when we sign a fighter, okay? So to get back to it, honestly, it's just a matter of, we want this fighter, when his contract's up, he's had a great run with XFC, to say, why would I leave? And we want to be in that conversation because we are not a feeder. The other advantage that we have that I think just bumps us right to the front of the class immediately, we're a publicly traded company. So we have the ability to create ownership stake in the XFC for XFC fighters. And we've already started that with XFC 43. And when you take a look at these kids that they get to a point, they retire, they get injured, or they retire, they just age out, whatever it may be, what do they have next, right? But, our thought is, hey, help us build this company, make this stock worth a bunch of money, so what you have creates wealth for yourself by the time you retire.
And I'm so glad you brought up being publicly traded, because that's exactly where I was going next. Because when people hear about the stock market, it might as well be alchemy or chemistry or magic, because most people don't know what the hell's going on with it more times than not. So explain to people that watch this and listen to this that why there is a value in being publicly traded. Is it simply about cachet? It means a lot. It means something for a brand to be publicly traded. Is part of that. Is it one that you don't have to go out and seek investments like what PFL and One Championships? You have that, source of revenue and money coming in with some consistency that you don't have to worry. Or like you said, is it the shares? Is it because a fighter can really buy in on a whole nother level long term? And then how does that shares element of it work out?
Well, yeah, and the beautiful thing is, we're a debt-free company, okay? So we're not running around with, millions and tens of millions of dollars in debt. There's a lot of promotions out there that there's money hanging out there, and someone's got to pay it back, and they've got to figure out how are you going to pay it back, right?
Is that why some of them can't go public because of debts? They just not an option when you have stuff like that?
I'm not an expert or an SEC attorney, so I can't speak for any specific organization. But what I can tell you is the thing I'm most excited about is the XFC fans who have come in and really gotten involved in this company and become shareholders. What a sexy, fun thing if you invest in something. Hey, say you own a piece of the XFC. I mean, I think it's sexier than saying Johnson and Johnson. Hey, the money's not the same, but at some point, that's what our goal is, right?
Now, early this year, there was a major bit of news in the sports television world where NBC Sports was going to be shuttered at the end of 2021. A major facet of your promotion's relaunch was, boom, U.S. broadcast deal, NBC Sports and stuff like that. What is the latest with your U.S. TV distribution? Is finding a new partner something you kind of hold off till fall, get a bunch of events under your belt, and then go see your value with places? Is it something you're working on now? And how difficult is it to find a TV partner that it works well for both sides while trying to grow the brand, expand the brand and everything?
Yeah, it's been a mixed bag with, the pandemic going on. Everyone is craving content. So, we're answering the phone quite a bit from a lot of different potential partners because everyone needs content since everything was so shut down. So, with NBC, we went into this NBC deal with basically options. Okay, we didn't go in with expectations that were crushed when they announced, they were moving everything over to Peacock. We're okay with that because we've got other plans. So we still have our partners. You'll see us on, for Young Guns, for instance, we're going to be on Fight TV. We're going to be broadcast throughout all of Latin America, very heavy in Mexico and Europe. So the broadcast partners are still there. As far as the U.S., yes, we are in conversations with some heavy hitters here for U.S., both English and Espanol. So we're in great shape there. But something that I'll share with you that I just broke a little bit last night in another interview, but you're kind of on the front edge of it. XFC TV will be ready by the time Young Guns hits.
Okay.
So this is going to be a 24/7 access to all XFC content, be able to watch our events, be able to tune in. You'll see everything from, our current library going back years. You can find specific fights, very well organized. You'll see the X-Girl contest we had in Brazil, which was absolutely insane. You'll see a lot of backdoor, content that's been produced and filmed. You'll see the tryouts. So, we're gonna create this nice programming for MMA fans, combat sport fans in general, and especially the XFC MMA fans.
Last question. What is the 2 and 5 year plan for XFC? Where do you hope to be in the sort of long short term, and then the real big picture stuff 5 years plus out? And does something as seemingly taboo at times as the idea of cross promotion, is that something that is even a thought for a big 5 year plan kind of thing?
Well, it's interesting. My 2 year plan is let's get the hell out of this pandemic.
For all of us.
That's my 2 year plan. I mean, it's changed everything between, the constant COVID testing, bubbles, and working intelligently, making sure we have a safe environment for the fighters, the fans, the staff, the production crews. So the 2 years is to get back to life as normal. So when you're looking at 2021, there's 12 events planned, which would be a Young Guns and one of our numbered events. Okay. And we'll always have a tryout. We're also planning on, taking the tryouts to Latin America and Europe and Canada. So, all that has been kind of set aside right now, just based on what's going on in the world. But we see breaking out of this.